We met someone at Solstice who's a second generation 3HO person. So if I'm Yogi Bhajan's student, my daughter would be second generation. And he married a girl and she's pregnant, and you're having a boy or girl. We want it to be a surprise. We need to get that teaching out there, right? Do we get that here at least? The soul enters into the body, and then you conceive, and 120 days later the soul enters the body. Then from 120th day to the moment of birth, essentially the mother programs the soul, gives its base frequency at the moment of ejaculation at time of conception. That's the man. After that is between the mother and the mother's prayer, and essentially in the computer language, the mother programs the child to have the kind of life that the mother wants the child to have. Right? So you have to know what you're programming. A woman is a very different species than a man. And if you don't use that time to teach the child, that's a form of just colossal ignorance, which creates the kind of society we've been living in for the last few thousand years. So the technology now allows you can find out what sex the child is, and then you can start talking to it in a proper way. Not to do that is a form of insanity. I mean, it really is. It's crazy. Because how can the child learn anything if you haven't taught him how to essentially learn things? And this rise of autism and Asperger's and on is because the beings now arriving on the planet are highly sensitive, because it's now an informational, internet-connected, computerized planet. So they need to be taught properly how to function inside that. And what's one main thing you need to give the child as soon as they land in you? A sense of self. Because I had to pull out my old copy of Casablanca, reel-to-reel tape, to watch that scene where Claude Rains, remember when they arrest the shocked, gambling's going on here in the casino. But did you see that thing, Facebook, that somehow leaked out on Facebook? That Facebook was experimenting by putting likes and dislikes on certain people's pages, psychologically manipulating them. Are you following this, people who live in that world of Facebook? Standard thing is you put, on one side of the page, you put an advertisement on for one group of people, and you put the same advertisement on the other side of the page for another group of people to figure out which side is going to pull more people. That's called A/B advertising. That's going on all the time. But this one was where you'd make a post, and Facebook would put up their own likes up there, their own dislikes up there, just trying to figure out another level of the algorithmic manipulation. There's a little talk I watched this afternoon. If you Google, this guy, what he did is he had a friend, he Googled Egypt, and then he Googled Egypt, and it came up with two very, very different pages. Because it's a computerized artificial intelligence that's trying to figure out what you should be perceiving. Are we aware of this? If you're not aware of this, you need to get aware of this. Because most everyone is essentially, their sense of identity comes from outside, it comes from environments, it comes from people's behaviors and reactions, and that defines their sense of self, because their mother didn't give them a sense of self in the womb. My mother was so manipulative that the only likes I assume I'm getting on my Facebook page are from her 216 different aliases out there on Facebook. She told me, she said, well, I've got to keep my mind sharp, otherwise it's Alzheimer's and I can't remember who I am. I said, Sybil, just calm down here. But it's a complete manipulated reality, and you should know that, and then you can enjoy it, and then you can use it. But if you don't think that you're inside somebody's computer game, you're going to lose. And then you're going to get upset, and you're going to weaken your own energy field, and when your energy field is weak, you're more prone to more manipulation, which of course is going to weaken your energy field, which allows you to be manipulated even more. which is why everyone's suffering. And then because your radiance is low and your energetic frequency is low, critical information for your well-being it doesn't connect with you. I've told these ladies who don't understand this teaching, I say, you need to find out the sex of the child so you can program the child properly, so it's going to save you money on rehab. Lawyers, right? You're not going to be holding your hand with a plastic glass talking your kid on the phone. But that's how they end up there. It's because no one's taught them that those are bad behaviors. And they end up coming out and they're just trying to figure out what to do. Because the parents are too ignorant to figure out how to essentially educate them properly. So we're going to teach this class to get people a little more up to speed. Anyway, we're just down at solstice, which we always enjoy going to because, at least for me, I see people who I've been practicing with since 40 years. And there's two lines that move through your life, right? Time and space. And you have to know what time wants, you have to know what space wants, and you have to read between the lines. It's a Yogi Bhajan classic teaching. If you can read what time wants, read what space wants, then you immediately know what you want. And if you can't read between the lines, then you don't know what you want, so you don't end up getting what you want, and 40 years later, with a tremendously powerful technology in your hand that you even practice consistently, there's a sense in your own behavioral pattern and your own energetic pattern that you didn't get what you wanted. So we have a lot of fun down there, what do you call it, playing bumper cars with that crowd who essentially, they were in the space, but they didn't understand how the flow of time worked. Or they didn't understand what space they're trying to get into because they went through a flow of time. So we don't want to have people in that kind of condition. So you've got to essentially be able to figure out, okay, I'm in a certain time, I have to figure out what kind of space is being presented and how I want to be able to shape that. And the key way to shape the time and space is I'm going to get some energy, right? I have to be conscious of my breath, and then I'm going to use some mantra to maneuver the time and space into a configuration that will benefit me. But if I have no sense of self, then I don't have that power to do that. And if my sense of self has become essentially computerized, then most of my existence takes place in cyberspace, which is perfectly okay as long as you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, then, because I got defriended by someone which they're just, oh. Little I know that was Procter and Gamble, that man, posing as my friend Julie. No, if I know who I am, and I'm comfortable with who I am, then time and space flow, and I can enjoy. And that's what we want to create. So we've been doing this Mahan Japa meditation where we do Sa, Ta, Na, Ma, which gives us a certain momentum of the psyche to control the elements, to essentially control the component energetic streams, which is the earth, water, fire, air, ether. And now that we started calculating, which we're going to try, let's why we just try to keep calculation more atom up, but we just put in at whatever day we were at solstice last week, about almost 700 million, because we had a big crowd. So you're in a room here with people who have practiced over 2 billion recitations. So that means that your aura can uplink to that energetic flow. And there's virtually no one on the planet who has that type of energetic download in them. So you're sitting in a room with some people who have quite a few recitations in. It's very easy for you to essentially tap into that. So that, which means that you'll all of a sudden have a command over the elemental parts of your life, which will allow you to flow easily through time and space, and allow you to magnetically pull out of the infosphere that information that's very essential and useful for you. And you won't be missing critical points like this fellow and his wife who can't figure out that they live in a modern age and the child needs to be educated. And this is not a new thing, right? This is one of the great dangers of being a human being is ignorance. If you don't know what you're doing, then things are going to go wrong. So we're trying to prevent that. So, did we get that point at least? Oh, that seems to be a pretty obvious, basic situation, isn't it? If the kid rises, I'm carrying the kid around. Therefore, what am I going to do for those 7 months or so? I'm going to talk to it, explain how everything works. Because once the kid comes out, it's a spectator sport. The kid doesn't pay attention to me anymore. He can watch TV. He's got Facebook friends all of a sudden. All right, so we'll get some of this sa, ha, na, ma. Simple, right? It's simple. I'm seeking to use my mind and body to find a higher level of energetic patterning than I was trained in. Each day I'm trying to get a higher level, higher frequency. Simple? Because there's computers out there. Every time you search the internet, they're trying to figure out which way they should lead you. We get this? I think it's simple, right? It used to be ABC, NBC, CBS News. It's 3 stations. If you live in a real big city, there was maybe 1 or 2 more stations. And those news stations had what they call editors, who decided what we would receive as the news. So now the model has changed, but it doesn't mean the editors have all died and gone away. They've just now got programmers, so that everything that's coming on your screen, essentially they've tried to custom form it so that it creates a certain response. And then you're manipulated off the response. Except if you have a certain power and sense of sovereign self, then you can't be manipulated. Then you can use time and space to enjoy instead of becoming enslaved by it.